What's going on, everyone? It's your host, the Sports Moose, with the Sports Heap, coming live at you for episode number 5 of the Viper's Nest. Thank you so much for the support so far. It's been awesome. Tonight's episode, we of course get ready for week 2 of the XFL action. We'll go over the other 3 games in the league and take a nice in-depth look at the Vipers visiting the Seattle Dragons on Saturday afternoon at 5 Eastern. We've got 2 new segments for you, Tale of the Tape, where we'll take an in-depth look position by position and see who has got the advantage. And then, of course, 3 keys, your stereotypical 3 keys to the game, our 3 keys for victory to make sure the Vipers get a win, get a tally in the win column. All that and more coming right at you, but as we always do, let's hit that intro. Hope everyone's having a great Valentine's Day or Valentine's Night, if you will. I'm going to make a great dinner. Let me get a few minutes to do my podcast routine. So coming live at you here, Valentine's Night, dropping the episode, getting you ready for the weekend's action of the XFL. Of course, I am the Sports Moose, one of the hosts here with the Viper's Nest and on the Sports Heap network of shows. Unfortunately, Emrod not able to join us tonight, doing some house stuff, doing Valentine's Day stuff. He'll be back for the recap show next week, recapping week 2, but that's fine. We'll hold down the fort without him for now. Of course, fun reminder, if you're watching me now on YouTube, great. Make sure you've subscribed and hit the like button if you haven't already. For you out there in podcast land, if you like watching a live show every once in a while, you can watch videos on our YouTube channel. Make sure to search the Sports Heap. You'll be able to find all our videos. I think this is video number 50 going on, if you're not counting the live shows. 50th episode. We're really excited about that. Then, of course, you can find us on all podcasting platforms right now. Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Just search the show name, and it should be popping right up within the first few shows. So we appreciate any stars you want to give us on there and any feedback as well. So let's get going around the XFL. Let's get right at it. Might be a quicker episode. I got to make sure we resume Valentine's Day duties, right? Very thankful to be able to drop this before Saturday's action. And we'll start with the first game on Saturday. Of course, the Vipers and Dragons playing the nightcap for Saturday night. First game, team that beat us, the New York Guardians, go on their first road trip. DC Defenders have their second home game in a row, hosting the Guardians. First game, 2 p.m. on ABC. I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup, and I don't think the Guardians are getting a lot of credit and respect. I mean, I don't know if they win this game, but they're underdogs by multiple points, probably over 5. I'd have to see the latest line for them, but they're really not getting any respect for the performance they had. I mean, sure, we talked at length of a pretty mediocre offensive performance with a couple bright spots and really no pressure by the Vipers on the offensive line or even to get in the backfield to affect McGloin's throwing ability. But their defense looked pretty solid, and again, it kind of goes against what we were saying last week, or in episode 4 at least, that the Vipers looked disorganized and really didn't get it going together for the most part of the game. But I want to give credit where credit's due. I think they had 8 or 9 pass deflections along with Washington, or with DC. So I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup of defenses. So, of course, just some quick stats. We're really excited for McGloin versus Cardale Jones, getting those MVP nods already, week 2 into the season. Uh, I think you really have to look at the pass rush of the Guardians and what they were able to put on the Vipers. And I don't think we want to understate that. I think far and away, best pass rush really looked like it was going to be the Roughnecks, which we'll talk about at the end of this segment. But, New York was on up there as well. Maybe the offensive line for the Vipers aren't pass experts or pass block experts, I guess, because they ran for 150 yards. So our offensive line isn't terrible, or maybe they're just bad at offensive pass blocking. So I think that's a matchup you have to look into. Washington's defense had a great performance as well, though it was kind of close until really breaking it up in the second half. 9 total pass deflections or passes defended, 2 interceptions, one of them taken to the house for a pick 6. They only recorded 1 sack, so their pressure was, as I was watching the game, consistent in terms of, it wasn't anything like we saw with the Guardians, let's say that, where they seem to be in the backfield almost every play after Aaron Murray. So, it was moderate. I would say moderate pressure for DC, and we'll see how that offensive line holds up against the Guardians. So, I think that should be a good game. I think DC still takes that one. So, I'd take DC money line on this game. Wonder if we're going to do maybe some special episodes of $10 Sports for the XFL. I know we like doing 5 picks, so I think 4 picks will be good. We just pick every game. It should give us enough content to talk about. If you want to see us do $10 Sports for the XFL, let us know. I'm sure Emrod and I will be happy to do a quick 15-minute episode every week for $10 Sports to continue our pick series. Of course, our next episode of $10 Sports, kind of the wrap-up episode for the NFL season, should be coming out next week. I know the Super Bowl's far and gone, but I want to go over our Super Bowl picks and do our final standings for our NFL picks, where I had a slight advantage this year. Very rare. Emron had a little bit of a down year, but I took the trophy home this year for total picks in the year. So Vipers and Dragons play Saturday night at 5. Hopping into Sunday, you have the Renegades going over to LA to play the Wildcats. Wildcats really struggled early on in their game against the Roughnecks last week. And the big news, of course, Landry Jones is back. He's in. Landry Jones is in. Josh Johnson's status still unsure. I guess they bumped him up to limited participation in practice, so that's good, right? Still a big question if he's going to be ready for the game. He's still suffering from that thigh injury. He seems a little tender. He looked a little bit more active in some of the clips I've seen and following some of the XFL LA guys out in Los Angeles. It's really 50-50 if he's going to play or not. I think one of the concerns is the backup who played last week is not ready to go. So that's really going to leave, if Canoff can't go, that's going to leave him with third stringer Jalen McClendon. So he might be in, big question mark. That's really going to limit LA's ability to be productive on offense, or who you never know. Maybe he's going to be the guy. He did spell Canoff a few moments in the game against the Roughnecks. Didn't look great as well, but you never know. Maybe he catches fire. LA's really got to improve the running game to provide some balance. Even though they were close with the Roughnecks last week, this could get ugly pretty quickly. They playing the Renegades. I think they're due to. I think they had their stinker too, kind of like the Vipers. Renegades seem to have a little bit of a stinker. I don't know if they were fully prepared for Jordan Tamu's dual threat ability, right? He ran for almost 80 yards and passed for 200 and change. So I fully expect the Renegades to bounce back here with Landry Jones back. Of course, Artis Payne didn't have Some big things were expected from him, and he didn't have particularly a strong game. And again, with Landry Jones in there, expect big games from their receiving and tight end core. So if you had to take the money line pick, I think my pick is on the I was gonna say Desperados, the Renegades. It looks like a Desperado, right? He's got the bandana over him, a little bit of a Desperado type look. The Renegades should take this one over the Wildcats, and then of course, nightcap for the entire week 2 on Sunday. You're looking at the Battlehawks going against the Roughnecks. That's kind of weird. I talked about Jordan Tammy. I think I confused those games. Roughnecks and Battlehawks now closing it up. So this is where I think it's going to be a really interesting mix because Houston's defense, of course, looked very impressive, but the Battlehawks, while they only scored 15 points, their offense actually looked pretty dynamic, I guess is the word. By far and away wasn't efficient or anything. Marquette King has shared his number of punts with the punter of the Renegades. So I'm hoping it's just first week jitters, and the big question mark is going to be if Jordan Tamu is going to be able to repeat his performance. I think that defense is going to be ready. They look, again, phenomenal against the Wildcats. I don't expect that to change. They look high octane playing at home. That Houston crowd was pretty awesome last week on Saturday as they welcomed the XFL into town. So kind of big players to watch, of course, for the Battlehawks. Matt Jones, Jordan Tamu, they combined for almost, how many rushing yards do they have? 191 rushing yards total. So they absolutely lead the league in rushing. I think the Vipers are a close second at 150 right behind them. And again, reflecting on that epic defensive performance from Houston, can that be repeated? I think it can. I think they have the players to do it. And I'm going to take Houston on the money line here. And again, it just depends if the Battlehawks can contain P.J. Walker. P.J. Walker seems to be a little bit of a different specimen than the quarterback that led the Renegades last week. Might have been a different story if Landry Jones was in. Neither here nor there. So that's kind of what your look is at the upcoming week for our brethren teams in the XFL. But now what you're all here for, the week 2 preview for the Vipers and the Seattle Dragons. I love the Seattle Dragons helmets, by the way. Seeing them live, or I guess live, right, or actually seeing them in game conditions, it looked pretty awesome in the way it integrated and went down with the jersey. Really excited to see their home jerseys, the green ones. Or are they navy? Green and navy, I think, right, with a splash of orange. I think those are going to look pretty sweet. I like the Vipers white look, but I think that's also going to look pretty sweet when they're home next weekend to open up against those Roughnecks. So, week 2 preview for the Dragons and the Vipers. Big question, I think, and always the most important question, right, is what can you expect from quarterback play? Brandon Silver's got a lot of criticism going into the season, and Jim Zorn got a lot of criticism going into the season about not being set at quarterback and relying on someone who was unproven and really never had any true NFL prospects. And Brandon Silver struggled, but again, I think the DC Defenders are one of the best defenses in the league, more than likely. Maybe not so much with the pass rush last week, but there was a little bit of pressure, and they got to him at least once for a sack. 53% completion's okay, but again, what is Silver's gonna be able to do against a depleted and what seems to be not a great Vipers defensive secondary? I mean, Austin Prohl had a huge first half, at least. Seemed to be quiet in the second half in week 1. Is he going to be able to get open and torch our safeties and our quarterbacks? It's going to be the big question, and we have to find a way to play defense. I know we're going off a base nickel, and we can totally expect 3 and 4 wide receiver sets all the way through. I think they utilized about 9 or 10 different receivers in week 1, and maybe part of that was dress rehearsal, right? Let's see who's going to get out there and catch the ball. So maybe that list gets a little bit smaller, but I mean, they're definitely running at least 4 receivers going out, whether one of them's a running back or a tight end. Most passing plays, if not everyone going out. So that is going to be really interesting to watch as a matchup of Brandon Silvers to see if the Vipers can get some defensive pass rush. I mean, non-existent against our opponent last week in the Guardians. This week, it's going to be even more critical. You've got to get back there and put pressure. If not, given the time, anyone can slice and dice. So, Vipers defense, please get on your horses, get into that backfield, get some sacks, get some hurries and pressure. I think that'd be particularly helpful. I think something we need to see also when you're looking at running backs, they used it, basically a 3-person committee. I think Gardner had the lead, the most rushing attempts. And rushing is really interesting, and kind of thinking why so many teams are having success rushing. I mean, I guess it's a little bit easier to rush against a base nickel or a base dime defense for the most part that teams are employing. So maybe that balance of the game is the emphasis on passing, at least for the league, is opening up rushing lanes a little bit. I'm really liking how this is working out. I think this is something I'm going to watch closely in this set of games for week 2. Is why is there so much success running the ball, at least when you're looking from an average yards per carry perspective. I mean, a lot of the major rushers for each of the teams are over 4 yards a carry. I think DC was maybe the only winning team that struggled with the run. I think their overall team average was maybe three or so yards a carry. It seemed like everyone else was having pretty good success running the ball and pushing that average into the 4 range. Hope to have a better game from Nick Truesdale as well. Had a case of the drops, and I mean, to his credit, he was getting lit up. Throws were definitely leaving him very exposed to some big hits. I think we got fortunate that one of his fumbles got ruled an incomplete pass. We got to see Skycam or the Sky Judge with the Xbox controller make the right call. No football move made, so no fumble for Truesdale. Hope to see Reese Horn hop back in. He had a good first half. I think he's going to be a big factor. And Dan Williams, leading receiver for the XFL. Let's see if they can shut him down. Seattle had a little bit of trouble on defense, especially in the second half. Houston's really able to pull away. Part of that was the defensive performance and a defensive touchdown, but still they were able to essentially just break them down and be able to. They controlled most of the air and were able to put pressure on their offense to not be able to keep moving the ball, and put pressure on their defense to not be able to stop them. What else is left for the preview? I know we've got a lot of info for Tail of the Tape, where we've kind of measured everyone, put everyone toe to toe to see where we can go. I mean, you want to look at special teams, and I wonder if we're finally ready to do a double pass, especially with Quentin Flowers. Are the Vipers going to be the first team to employ the double pass? We're still waiting. I know that's been kind of the conversations in a few podcasts I've been listening to and watching, and even just conversations that you've seen on Reddit and Twitter. It's great. We've made all these rules: double pass, 3-point attempt. When will we finally get to see them? I think maybe we pull off a double pass this time. That'd be great. Quentin Flowers seems to be going to be used in the normal capacity, mostly because the big news coming out of Vipers camp is that Aaron Murray is out for week 2. Probably should have led with that, right? We kind of opened up a little bit with looking at our opponent, and now as we move into the Vipers, we talked a little bit about our receiving core, but breaking news, not so much breaking anymore. Uh, no Aaron Murray, which I think Viper Nation and Fang Gang, we were kind of clamoring, well, this should have been a decision that was made regardless of if he was injured or not. So everyone's clamoring for Quentin Flowers, and I'm in that number as well. I think we talked about it in episode 4. Lots of momentum when he was in there, very similar to Jordan Tamu. Just a different dynamic, a dual threat, really opens stuff up. But it looks like Trestman's elected to give first team reps to Cornelius Taylor, which we're really excited about because kind of a stud prospect. I mean, really wasn't going to make it in the NFL. Maybe he was kind of being scouted for the end of the draft. Was he on the Steelers, I think? Or I forget which team picked him up. But had a strong season up in Oklahoma State. The Cowboys ended up with 7-6 after winning their bowl game. I think there's kind of an ironic team ironic person he played. I think it was another team. Might have been not McElwain. Who's starting? I think it was Brandon Silver's team. They actually ended up playing each other that season, and they ended up on top. It's really, as I was reading Cornelius's story, really interesting. Or Taylor Cornelius, I should have said. Really interesting. Kind of really wasn't thought of for as freshman and sophomore, junior year, but senior year, he was designated a starter, and he did for all those games. I think he was third in total points at Oklahoma State. I think he was behind Barry Sanders, and that's what it was. It was Mason Rudolph. Kind of the irony, Mason Rudolph in and out, kind of struggling in the NFL at the end, and here you have another Cowboy quarterback for Oklahoma State who's kind of getting ready to play professionally for the Vipers. So with that, let's get over to the tail of the tape, one of our new segments where we put it all out there and see where we stand against Seattle, position by position. And there it is, tail of the tape. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, you've got the luxury of having it on your screen. If not, we'll go line by line, tail of this tape. At the quarterback position, this doesn't matter if Flowers starts, doesn't matter if it's Cornelius Taylor or Taylor Cornelius. Man, I keep flipping that. I'm liking if Cornelius starts. I think he's younger. He didn't really get a sniff in the NFL, and I think he's been waiting for this shot. Word is he's been looking pretty good in taking the reps, and Trestman believes in him, so he's getting this. It looks like he's going to be getting the start with sprinkling in Quentin Flowers. I think Trestman addressed a little bit why he wasn't used as much as maybe we wanted to see him used. He just kind of wanted to get him acclimated to the game and to see in what capacity he could use him. Take that for what it's worth. With Trestman, just too many question marks with Brandon Silver's really struggled in week 1. Maybe with practice, he'll feel more confident. Maybe it's Vipers defense that makes him feel a little bit more confident. But Quentin Flowers, whether it's Quentin Flowers or Taylor Cornelius, I fully expect big bounce back game from the quarterback position for the Vipers. Looking at the wideouts and the tight ends, I think despite Austin Proehl's efforts, I think the more complete and just ready to go group, again, advantage going to big check mark for the Vipers here. Triple threat with Reese Horn, Dan Williams, and Nick Truesdale. Can't go wrong. And that kind of leads us to the running back position, where I also think we have a big advantage. The Vipers have a huge advantage. Devion Smith looked strong last game. I think that continues so long as our offensive line continues doing some great run blocking and that the opportunity is there to actually run. Hopefully, we're not playing from 14 points behind like we had to do for most of the game against the Guardians. Kind of limited our ability to run, despite some of the rule changes to, especially with the competitive, 2 minutes that you can still run because you get to preserve 5 seconds on the clock. Still got to make sure the running game is part of our plan, and I think if Quentin Flowers, if that game plan's incorporated correctly, we should have another pretty solid banner day on the ground against Seattle. Offensive line. I think that the advantage here, checkmark, goes to the Seattle Dragons. They really held the defenders at bay. They couldn't rush the ball all that well. I think 60 or 65 yards. But they only gave up 1 sack and 2 or 3 quarterback hits or hurries. So that's a great showing for an offensive line against what looked to be a pretty dominant defense, at least in the secondary. Some great moves going on by DC, who actually just traded one of their guys over to the Wildcats. So DC's secondary, I think, getting a little bit weaker with the movement of one of their players. I lumped in defensive special teams just because special teams has been a little bit less emphasis on special teams in the league. Still some strategic punting going on. Marquette King really put on a clinic last week with the Battlehawks. I put everything even here. Mostly, I put an even, so no advantage, no check mark for anyone. And I did that just because Franks missed a field goal. Our defense looked lost for a little bit, and then some weakness at the quarterback and safety position. And Seattle's defense, did okay. They did a little bit better in terms of pass rush. But, they gave up about 25 points, almost the same number of points. Well, not really the same number of points because the Vipers had a pick 6 as well. So, they gave up about 24 points. The Dragons gave up about 24 points in their game. So, I think we'll just have to see where we're at there with defensive special teams. I think the jury's still out. We'll have to see how respective kickers and punters do. And, name for name and ability for ability, I think we're potentially looking at 2 lower rung defenses matching up. Hopefully the pass rush again improves for the Vipers. Coaching, when you're looking at Jim Zorn versus Tressman, at least maybe performance-wise so far, I gave the advantage to Seattle right now, and let me tell you why. I think Jim Zorn coached a heck of a game against the defenders. It was close. I think it was tied going into halftime, or a 1-point lead or something like that for the defenders. And, things really fell apart. Quarterback play declined, or, went down for the second half. So, not really much Zorn could do there. I think the play calling was okay and trying to keep plays safe for Brand Silvers, but I think Zorn made better decisions, and Zorn had him in the game at least at one point. From beginning to end, it seemed like the Vipers were, even though the points suggested we were in the game, it just seemed like we couldn't get over that hump of momentum needed to, all right, now we're in the driver's seat and we're going to take ownership of the game. Just never happened in week 1. So for right now, advantage going to Jim Zorn and the Seattle Dragons in the coaching department. So I think it's going to be a pretty close game. The spread, as you'll see over there to the left, we got the yellow check mark. I think the Vipers are going to win this game, but I think it's going to be close. Vegas has it at minus 1.5. I think that's pretty accurate. It's going to be, I'd give it a 3-point game. I'll take Vipers on the spread here to win by more than 2, I guess, or win by 2 or more. Money line's coming in at minus 130. Total points here, 43. I think this is interesting, given that the defenses don't seem to be great. I guess as Vegas is trying to adjust for some of the high points they totals they gave out last week. So we'll see what happens in terms of over under. I'm staying away from XFL action probably for another week or two till stats acclimate, I guess, and I can make better conjectures of totals and spreads, if you will. So total 43. I don't know. I think I'd take the over. I'd take an over 43, especially if Taylor Cornelius is going to be playing quarterback for the Vipers. If he's going to come in with a new attitude and a new way to play, might be a situation where he's the guy, right? Is that my wishful thinking? Am I wearing my Vipers fan hat too prominently? I don't know. Maybe I'm just wishing for the best. Maybe I just want a good quarterback in Tampa. That would be great. Some good quarterback play. I'd really appreciate that, especially now that we have the Aaron Murray board going on behind me. So, yellow check mark goes to the Vipers, totally picking them to win this matchup. That only leaves us with one more segment. Our 3 keys to the game. Talked about it and alluded to them a little bit during our show today. But let's take a look at the the big 3 items we have to address if we're going to have a chance in this game. I think key number 1, I've said it multiple times, it's got to be a commitment and a renowned emphasis on the pass rush. It's a passing league. It's an offensive league. If we're not getting to the backfield, if we're not being disruptive, it's just not going to happen. You can't give Silvers time to pass. Doesn't matter what ability you think he has or doesn't have. It just can't happen. Can't give them time to pass the ball. Can't give them time to set up runs and screens and double passes. I have a feeling we're going to see one this week. So it just can't happen. Just can't happen. Got to get back there. CeCe Jefferson, looking at you, looking at our 2 linebackers that we have on the roster. Even though I feel like we should have more linebackers, I guess we're rotating with our larger safeties in there, I guess, that if we ever need more than 2 linebackers, come on, pass rush. I'm really counting on you. I think the second priority has to be getting Cornelius comfortable / protect your quarterback. This was really a pressure point for the Vipers and an area of where probably an area of most improvement needed is the pass blocking. I think our running blocking looked fine. Haven't looked closely at the tape to see, gaps, or maybe it was our running backs overachieving and making our offensive line look amazing, but it seemed like we had it figured out on the rush, but really struggled with coverage and blitz pickups against the Guardians. I think one of their cornerbacks actually had 2 sacks, so for me that tells me that we're not picking up the blitzing guy, or he's coming on the outside, and we're crisscrossing communication or crisscrossing coverage blocking assignments, or the running back's not picking up the assignment or chipping, or Aaron Murray just didn't recognize a blitz was coming, didn't see the corner blitzing. Guy's open. If a corner blitzing, the guy is in zone coverage, probably in a mismatch. Got to find that guy, and you pass him the ball, or you dunk it down to your pressure valve, or your release valve. Come on, basic football. Yeah, Taylor Cornelius. What I really like about Taylor Cornelius and really getting him comfortable is he is a big man. That is 6'6". He's got the build. Aaron Murray, I think, 6'1", 6'2"? What's he listed at? 6'1", 204. You have 6'6", 233. I mean, a big guy, big strong arm. He's got the build of a quarterback, posing his will, just really looks like a quarterback out there, right? He should be able to survey the field of extra 5 inches vision and right up there with probably his offensive lineman in terms of height. So as long as we're able to protect, we should be okay. But this brings us to our third key of the game. Got to keep pounding that rock. De'Veon Smith has got to keep pounding the rock because it provides balance, releases the pressure, or lowers the pressure and expectations on a first-time starting quarterback. And really, with providing that balance, it just opens up other plays, opens up play action to get us down the field and really stretch the field with our amazing group of receivers who are pretty quick. So, De'Veon Smith, looking at you. Let's get the job done. Keep pounding that rock with the running game. I think that brings us to this edition of the Viper's Nest. Hope you've enjoyed it. A little bit of Valentine's Day, getting ready for that now. So we'll get the episode uploaded for you all. Hope you guys enjoy this preview to week 2 of the XFL. Emrod should be back with us next week for the recap show. We'll try to go Tuesdays and Thursdays, just depending on life schedule. Tuesday for the recap, and maybe I like Tuesday and Friday actually. Tuesday for the recap and kind of a early Friday evening, Friday night drop for the preview show. It's been your host Moose with the Sports Heap. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. My handle's right down below. I've got a couple new followers lately from the Fang Gang, so thank you guys for supporting. That's Moose at Moose_TSH for my Twitter handle, and Mike's Twitter is going to be at Emrod_TSH for your fedora wearing co-host Emrod. Thank you so much for the support. Again, don't forget to find us on your podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and the like. And we're on YouTube if you like watching live shows on YouTube. If you like watching my cat run on screen every once in a while. And if you like looking at the sweet man cave with the hung jerseys and my Notre Dame and the Aaron Murray board right behind me as well. Thank you so much. We'll see you on Tuesday for a recap of hopefully what's going to be a Vipers victory over those Seattle Dragons. Have a great night, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Take care.